Man United have taken another step forward in revamping their forward line, signing Bryan Mbeumo from Brentford. The fourth top scorer in the Premier League and the second highest overperformance in terms of XG in Europe's top 5 leagues, Bryan Mbeumo is expected to add goals to Ruben Amorim's forward line. So today we're going to have a deep dive into Bryan Mbeumo's statistics. We're going to analyse his play, we're going to look at some tactics and see how he's going to solve a number of problems that Man United have had under the Portuguese coach Ruben Amorim. Of course, if you are new around here, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like the video. But anyway, let's get this party started. So before we dive into the tactics, let's have a little refresh of Bryan Mbeumo's profile. Bryan Mbeumo is a versatile left-footed forward. This season he's largely played on the right of the front three, but he's also played closer to goal in various back three systems and even as a wing-back. Not the tallest, Mbeumo is very impressive physically. Agile, athletic and powerful, Mbeumo's low centre of gravity makes him tough to knock off the ball. What's more, he's one of the quickest players in the Premier League. For Brentford, Mbeumo has largely operated as an inverted winger, constantly threatening the back line with his speed and movement. When he receives, his excellent dribbling ability allows him to quickly shift the ball to get shots off. The focal point of Brentford's attack, Mbeumo isn't just a goal scorer. Quite creative, he likes to receive wide near the touchline before cutting inside to deliver inverted crosses or to slide forwards in behind with through balls. Whilst he takes up wide starting positions when the ball is on his side, Mbeumo moves into narrow positions when it's on the other side. Combine this positioning with his alertness, speed and powerful shooting makes Mbeumo a serious threat in and around the box. Despite being a very explosive player, Mbeumo is very injury resistant and has played all but 6 minutes in the 24-25 Premier League season. Let's first talk about the importance of speed, something that Manchester United have been lacking. Ruben Amorim is a possession-based coach, and long-term he wants his Man United team to dominate the ball, create chances through overloads, overlaps, underlaps, and just being a little bit creative in the final third. But in the short term, results really need to improve. Manchester United's best performances under the Portuguese coach have come in the bigger games, where Man United have been more defensively compact and look to draw their opponents on before breaking in behind their possession structure. And if not for wasteful finishing and individual errors, Amorim should have beaten Arne Slot's Liverpool, Mikel Arteta's Arsenal, Postecoglou's Spurs and done the double over Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. Whilst Mbeumo won't stop the individual errors, he'll improve the wasteful finishing. The biggest XG overperformer in the Premier League last season, Mbeumo is a scorer of great goals, seen in his volleys against West Ham or Spurs or his postage stamp banger against Newcastle United. For me, this is the big reason why I'm not concerned with Mbeumo's overperformance in expected goals. In the last 2 seasons, Mbeumo has missed 18 big chances, scoring 29 goals. To put that into perspective, Haaland, Salah and Ollie Watkins all missed over 20 big chances just last season alone. But getting back to the point, Manchester United have lacked goals, but more importantly on the counter-attack under Ruben Amorim. If we go back to Manchester United's last 2 seasons where they got over 70 points, they scored the second most goals from fast breaks in those years. But last season, only 5 teams in the Premier League scored fewer goals on the counter-attack than Manchester United. And a big part of this is down to Ruben Amorim. By forcing out Marcus Rashford in January, United lost their quickest, most deadly finisher on the counter-attack. But it was the right decision, which has led to United signing Matheus Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo. In Bryan Mbeumo, Manchester United have not only signed a player that's played in a similar system in the Premier League, but also is lightning fast on the counter-attack. In fact, only Liam Delap, Mohamed Salah and Kai Havertz have scored more goals from fast breaks than United's new duo, Matheus Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo. His speed makes him well suited to counter-attacking football, as seen in this example against Chelsea. Brentford winning the ball back in their defensive third, but instantly, as soon as there's a bit of a sniff that Brentford might win the ball back, Mbeumo's idea straight away is to move in behind the backline, make an attacking run and stretch the opposition. And we see that the 50-50's won and Kevin Schade emerges with the ball. Bryan Mbeumo is already out of shot, and I think his speed, we can really see this in this goal. Kevin Schade drives forward, gets his head up, slides the ball inside the centre backs, and Bryan Mbeumo is free. He beats Tosin with one touch, gets head up and finishes well from outside of the box into the bottom corner. His speed makes him well suited to mid-block or low-block counter-attacking football, as seen in this example against Chelsea, and Mbeumo positioned at the moment in a 3-5-2 as the right striker. What I like about Mbeumo though is he reacts really well to his team potentially or actually winning the ball back. So as soon as there's a bit of a 50-50, we can already see that he's slightly orientated to making a forward run. The 50-50 comes in, Brentford win it, and he's already out of shot. He is on his bike. Kevin Schade carries out of trouble, driving through the Chelsea midfield. But from this instance, we can see the pace of Bryan Mbeumo. At this moment, Levy Colwell's got about 2 to 3 yards on him. Schade gets his head up, finds the ball in between the two centre-backs, and Bryan Mbeumo is absolutely gone. He takes one touch to beat Tossen before getting his head up outside the box and firing the ball home. United don't have blistering pace in their forward line, and Mbeumo should fill this hole for Ruben Amorim's side. That being said, Mbeumo is not a one-dimensional player that is just based on his speed, his number of sprints, the intensity of his runs. That is just one part of his game. Man United aren't signing a player with potential. They're signing a well-rounded forward that's played in the Premier League and dominated in the division. So teams that play in low blocks, Mbeumo has other answers. But defensively is another area that I'm very, very impressed with. It is nice to see attackers defend well, drop back, cover their fullbacks, do the hard yards. And it's something that Bryan Mbeumo does in absolute abundance. Take the goal that he scored against Fulham. What I like about Bryan Mbeumo is a very responsible footballer. He's not going to wait for his teammates to make that defensive move. He's going to do it himself. In this situation, Fulham have cleared the ball, and Mbeumo is dropping back into almost a defensive midfield position. Again, responsibility. But in terms of what I like about this is he's fixated on the ball, but he's also dealing with that forward run. And as soon as Traore makes a bit of a mistake, he jumps on it, winning the ball back and straight away starting the counter-attack. He adjusts his run quite well because Kevin Schade's making the inside line, and he moves to attack the space before receiving the through ball from Johan Visser, taking a really good touch onto his weaker right foot and firing across the goalkeeper. It's another reason why I don't mind his overperformance in expected goals. It just feels like things have clicked for Bryan Mbeumo this season. But Bryan Mbeumo won't just make Manchester United better on the counter-attack with his speed, defensive awareness and work rate, but also it should mean that Man United keep more clean sheets as he's such a diligent defender. One of the ways to really get at a back three is to double up on a wing back with a winger and a fullback, overload them in the wide areas and create chances through underlaps or overlaps. So either the outside centre-back needs to step over so it becomes a 2v2, but this consequently will create space further down the back line, either for a midfielder or striker to attack. But ideally what you'd want to do is that outside centre-back to hold his position and the winger to drop back and deal with the fullback. This is something that Bryan Mbeumo did really well in the game against Newcastle from the Premier League last season. So we pick up the play with Dan Burn in possession. Bryan Mbeumo highlighted top of shot. We can clearly see Brentford's defensive structure. Bryan Mbeumo as a right midfielder in a 4-4-2. What Newcastle are going to try and do is open up the shape by playing the ball wide and then attack the inside channel with a fullback forward run. And we see that Brentford's fullback steps up and engages, but just look at this defensive responsibility from Bryan Mbeumo, tracking Lewis Hall metre by metre before dropping into the back line. Once again, we can see the defensive structure of Brentford, the 4-4-2, but this time Mbeumo is in a right full-back position. This is very responsible, which for me means that United could potentially play Mbeumo as a wing-back if they wanted to. If they wanted to go super attacking and throw maybe another attacking midfielder in the lineup, Mbeumo into that back line could make a lot of sense. But the play progresses as Newcastle play some nice football, they break the lines before working it out to the left-hand side. Once again, Bryan Mbeumo reacts like a fullback, not an attacking winger. Gets into a good position. He's talking to his teammates. We can see he's clearly highlighting. We need to, make sure that we're covering that space is where I usually am. I'm in a fullback position. Let's make sure that we don't leave that open for Newcastle to exploit. The ball gets played back and Bryan Mbeumo makes a fantastic tackle on the forward run from midfield and wins the ball back for Brentford. That is so refreshing. And I'm really excited to see Bryan Mbeumo track back and make those types of tackles. Call me weird, but Man United have really lacked that in the last 10 years. But anyway, with that level of defensive diligence, Man United could definitely play Bryan Mbeumo and Amad Diallo on the same flank. Let's not forget the fact that Amad Diallo made more defensive actions that led to goals than any player in Europe's top 5 leagues last season. His ability to jump and press is only going to be improved with a player that works like an absolute dog in the defensive sense in Bryan Mbeumo. And I think just rounding off that flank, having Lenny Yoro and his quality in 1v1 situations, but also the ball carrying that we saw at the back end of the season, is going to make Manchester United have one of the best right flanks in the Premier League. Going from nothing to something that might resemble an actual flank is going to be very, very exciting. So enough talk about defensive responsibility, blah, 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 speed, counter-attacking prowess. How actually will he fit into Manchester United? Let's dive into that straight away. So of course he's going to be playing as the right attacking midfielder in Ruben Amorim's 3-4-2-1. In terms of the exciting side of what Manchester United are going to become, they're actually going to have 2 proper attackers, 2 players that are in the prime of their career. But we're not going to talk about Matheus Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo right now, but if you want us to make a video on the duo and how they might open up some of the toughest Premier League defences, get into the comments below and just comment Matheus Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo. Thank you very much. But anyway, back to kind of the profiles. Of course, Ruben Amorim's Sporting Club de Portugal, in terms of the attacking midfield line, they played one that was more of an attacking midfielder that would receive the ball into feet and look to kind of dribble, carry and create opportunities in probably more central areas. Whereas the other number 10, as much as yes, they would receive with the back to goal and they'd be involved in the possession play, they had more license to drift out. Think either the likes of Marcus Edwards or more frequently someone like a Trincao, with Pedro Gonçalves playing the other number 10 role. But in terms of that blend of having one attacking midfielder and one inverted winger in your front 3, it allows a lot of fluidity in the final third. For example, let's say if the ball has been worked out to the right wing back, making that move and dragging the opposition wide creates space for a wing back to cut inside. Something that we saw with Quenda at Sporting Club de Portugal and something that we've seen with Amad Diallo under Ruben Amorim. This allows for different tactical situations, such as direct through balls to a number 9 running in behind the defence. And that's exactly what we saw in Gyökeres's first goal against Man City in the Champions League. Sporting drawing City on high with Morita dropping into the back line, playing a long ball out wide to Quenda at right wing back. We've got Trincao highlighted in this central position as the inverted winger role. As the ball works out to the right hand side, we can see what Quenda's going to do. He wants to cut inside onto that stronger right foot. And for example, if Trincao stays in the space he is, it probably closes down the area of the pitch for Quenda to move into. So instead of staying in a position in between 4 of Manchester City players, he pulls into the wide area, which takes the attention of Gvardiol away from the ball carrier. This allows Quenda to drive inside in a nice pocket of space, find a through ball to Victor Gyökeres in behind the Man City defence, and the big Swedish centre-forward does the rest. A top-quality goal, but created from that tactical situation of your 10 moving out wide, your wing-back cutting inside, and your 9 making a run in behind the defence. Something that Bryan Mbeumo could bring to Man United. But not only have we seen Bryan Mbeumo operate on the right wing for Brentford in the Premier League, we've also seen him be a part of a front 2. This could allow United to play a slightly different system in big games, allowing them to potentially play an extra midfielder in that defensive midfield zone, but still retaining a lot of threat. From these positions, Bryan Mbeumo and of course Matheus Cunha could be very horizontal in a sense of pulling to those wide areas to get on the ball. Once again, potentially creating situations for Bryan Mbeumo to pull wide and Matheus Cunha to spin in behind the defence as Amad Diallo cuts into the centre of the pitch. Another tactical variation that United didn't really have this season. So let's move into the final third. What could Bryan Mbeumo bring to Ruben Amorim's side? As we mentioned in the profile section of the video, Bryan Mbeumo is a player that operates as an inverted winger in the final third, that being a player that likes to cut inside before getting crosses into the box, or alternatively maybe looking for through balls, or even getting shots away by himself directly on goal. He's a player that has quite a lot of threat. In terms of the chance creation, he's pretty good. In the Premier League, he was 4th in the division for big chances created. But also he's not one-dimensional like an Anthony, a player that's consistently just going to do that. He's got the ability to also go on the outside, which gives him a little bit more of a threat to opposition fullbacks. In a sense, as he's happy to go on the outside, he could then check back onto that left foot, or alternatively, go and hit the byline before delivering it maybe a low cross, or if he has checked back, chipping the ball to the back stick for the opposite side winger to score. And this is something that United haven't really had. United don't really have these players that can do it all. They have players that are a little bit one-dimensional in certain parts of their game. But in terms of Bryan Mbeumo, we've got some good examples of him crossing. For example, this cross against Spurs, Bryan Mbeumo picking up the ball in a classic inverted wing position. Not only does he check back inside and feint to cross on his left foot, but then he drives on the outside, feints to cross with his right foot before driving to the byline and putting a really good ball into the box on his right foot that Johan Visser should have done a little bit better with. Or this example against Nottingham Forest, Bryan Mbeumo once again picking up the ball in an inverted wing position. With the ball on his left hand side, the defender thinks he's going to cut in, but instead what Bryan Mbeumo does, he's shaping to do that before exploding on the outside with a little feint and then firing a great ball across the box that Johan Visser really should have put in the back of the net. And for me, this is a big reason why Bryan Mbeumo is so difficult to defend against, that he can coax you into pretending that he's going to go inside with small touches before exploding on the outside and getting crosses into the box. But also those short touches give him the ability to change direction really quickly before exploding with his acceleration, and that allows him to get shots away. Only 21.7% of Bryan Mbeumo's shots get blocked. If we compare that to the likes of Saka or Garnacho, 35% of their shots were blocked last season. Son had 32%, Martinelli had 29%. And just for reference, Mohamed Salah, who's really good at getting shots away, only 20% of his shots got blocked in the Premier League last season. And we saw that in the game against Crystal Palace, how Bryan Mbeumo can get shots away. We pick up the play with Brentford building through the thirds. Bryan Mbeumo's role from a possession perspective when Brentford were building out the back was to pin back the opposition's outside centre-back or full-back. We can see him just now south of the shot. As Johan Visser gets the ball, Mbeumo is already on his bike. Something that he'll do is constantly running behind the defence, something that Man United players definitely don't do enough. But as soon as Bryan Mbeumo is in this position, you expect Marc Guéhi to be okay. He's in a pretty good defensive position, he's a real good Premier League quality defender, but with Bryan Mbeumo's ability to take those short touches in the box before exploding inside and then firing to the far corner, it's very difficult for defenders to stop him. Or in this example against Leicester City, once again, Brentford working the ball through midfield, Damsgaard finding Bryan Mbeumo in a 1v1. And once again, Mbeumo slows the play down, takes a few short touches before exploding on the outside, firing the ball into the far corner. Top right wing play against Premier League defenders. So in conclusion, Bryan Mbeumo is the perfect player for Manchester United. Premier League proven, defensively diligent, very, very quick, intense in his movement, runs in behind the defence, and creates chances and scores goals. What more could you want in a signing? But it is that time of the video to rate the transfer. Get into the comments below your transfer rating. So we're going to start with the player's current quality. We're going to go with an 8 out of 10 for Bryan Mbeumo. His potential, 9 out of 10. The finances for the deal aren't great. Brentford have forced Manchester United to play a little bit more than United did for Matheus Cunha, but you are dealing with one of the best financial clubs in the league. These things happen. In terms of tactical fit, looking at the system and style, I think the style works really well. The system's also good. We're going to give that a 7 out of 10. And finally, tactical fit, looking at adaptability, we're going to give that a 10 out of 10. So overall, we're going to give this deal a 4-star rating. A player that's going to help Man United score more goals. But anyway, guys, if you like the video, make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you next time on the Statman Dave YouTube channel. Goodbye.
Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, why not check out some more content on the Statman Dave YouTube channel?